Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back to TikTok, where we make sense of personal finance. Today, I'm fortunate enough to have Nate Hoskin, the founder and lead advisor at Hoskin Capital. And to kick things off, as we always do, Nate, can you give a quick introduction on why you're here today and what your real story is on how you got into personal finance?
Absolutely, Josh. Thank you so much for having me. I really got into personal finance when I was really young. I think I was 13 or 14 when I started to get an idea of how much of an impact money would have on my life, whether I wanted to focus on it or not. I knew that it was going to play a role. And so, just like with fitness and relationships, finance is just one of those ineffable truths.
Mhm.
And I realized I was like, this is what I want to learn about. This is what I want to figure out. And so I originally went into asset management and I wanted to work for a hedge fund or work for an ETF or a large asset manager, and realized very quickly that I wanted to work with people and that I wanted to work face to face and see the impact that I was having on someone's finances in real time. So I went ahead and became a financial advisor instead. And so I started working with multimillionaires and billionaires, doing the very sort of typical financial advisory route, and realized that they aren't the people who need help. And I very quickly got sick of helping millionaires make another million and realized that I wanted to help younger people really create wealth instead of just manage wealth. And so that's really where I got started.
I love that. Create wealth versus manage wealth. And I have to say 13 and 14 years old is, I would say, pretty young to start thinking about personal finance. I know I was barely figuring out what W-2 job I was going to have. So what set that fire at 13 or 14? What was something that got you interested in it and started going down that path?
Yeah, pretty much right when I stopped having job aspirations of like a knight in shining armor or like a cowboy and started to think about jobs that I might actually do in the real world. My uncle Galen, my middle name is actually Galen, so
Okay.
he was a huge part of my life, and he was an asset manager for Capital Group. And so I knew very quickly that I wanted to do what he did. And when I was 13 and 14, I mean, I saw the Porsche and the tennis courts and the large house and that sort of thing. I was like, wow, I want what he has. But the thing that really pushed me onto my journey was the way that he talked about money, because he always described it as stored energy. And it
Mhm.
was the, call it liquid life, call it the thing that really allows you to do whatever you want with your existence. It's the thing that fuels you. And I mean, I'm from Colorado. I love to go up into the mountains and go skiing and that sort of thing. I'm not deifying the gas that's in my car, that stored energy that's going to get me from point A to point B. But without that fuel, I mean, the driveway is the limit. And so that was really what got me started, was hearing him talk about that stored energy and being a steward of that stored energy.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And I almost would say that's a different way of classifying money in a sense. I think some people demonize money. I think some people look at it and say this is not the best tool, versus others. I think some of the wealthier people will look at it and say this is really just a tool to get to a certain point. Did As you progressed in your career, did you see more of the latter there, where people were maybe not understanding that money is technically a tool, even though you're saying that's what you grew up and understood that language to be?
Yeah, I think I understood that language, but I very quickly realized that there were two camps of people. There were the people who wanted nothing to do with money and the people who thought that money was everything. And neither camp seemed very happy. And so I was sort of stuck in the middle where I was like, wait, I'm lucky enough to have a very positive relationship with money. Are you guys okay? Like, can I help?
Got it. Okay, that's good. So there's still a message for both sides, both camps, really, and it's your job to actually communicate that. So that's a perfect segue into the next question for you, and that's how you actually share your personal passion with everybody every single day, especially because you've kind of got a more of a target audience, right? Is you, like you said, create wealth versus just managing wealth. So how do you reach the create wealth people every single day?
It happened totally by accident, but it's all social media,
Okay.
because the create wealth camp are not necessarily the people who are looking for financial advisors. And they're certainly not people who would pick up a cold call or answer a cold email. But they are people who are very curious and very passionate about learning about money and learning about the ways that they can be more responsible stewards of that stored energy. And so I just started educating. And at the time I was studying for my CFP, the Certified Financial Planner designation. And I was learning so much, and I was so blown away by the inner workings and the mechanisms of money that I was like, I have to tell people about this somehow. I have to get this out there. I have to communicate it. And at the time I was locked down in COVID. And so I just started making TikToks. And I was so excited and so fired up that I started making 9 or 10 TikToks a day for 6 months. I just had so much to say and so much to teach. And the response was amazing. So very quickly, I had hundreds of thousands of followers.
That's really cool. And do you feel that you see business growth from social media channels, especially on LinkedIn too? So I know you mentioned TikTok, but us being connected on LinkedIn, I've seen some of your posts there and I find them fascinating. And you obviously get a lot of engagement. Do you see some business growth from both of those?
Yes, I've built my entire business off of organic traffic. I have never made a single cold call. I've never run a paid advertisement. I have exclusively done social media and organic outreach and that sort of thing. And it has created this wonderful snowball of referrals. But in the early days, I was getting a lot of business, but none of it was working. There was something very clearly broken in the way that I was providing help to the people who were very curious and who had built a lot of trust with me. And the reason was because I was a copy paste financial advisor. I was charging a management fee. My fee was 0.9%. And I was saying, hey, I will manage your investments and I will outperform the stock market. And that was it. That was my sell. And I realized very, very quickly that that was not what people needed. That was not what was actually going to help them become wealthy. It was really just one star in the galaxy of their finances.
Yeah. And what about that message do you think caught the attention of your new target audience, the create wealth side? And if we want to create a different name for that, we do. Actually, I think there is one, but I don't want to jump ahead.
Okay. Yeah, we'll hold off on the name just for now so that we can talk about it when it comes up. But to make sure I understand your question, like, how did me changing my business model work better? Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah. Why do you think that actually caught the attention of that particular target audience?
I mean, because it's not something that's currently available.
Yeah.
Financial planning nowadays is pretty much always wrapped into that management fee. And so the assumption is that you need to walk into the door with $250,000, $500,000. And as a little bonus for being able to manage your money, they would also do some financial planning with you. Maybe they would write a financial plan. Maybe they would do that at the beginning of the relationship, but that was never really the forefront of what they were providing.
Right.
And so to say, hey, I will sit down with you for 3 weeks and we will put all of your finances on paper and I will show you how you can do them better. And then we will look ahead 30 or 40 years and talk about what the results might be. That's a very new thing for a lot of people. And I think new tends to catch attention.
Yeah. I was excited to talk with you today too. I think because you are different. Me being 34, I've been through different advisors and different experiences. So I didn't start investing until I believe 2011 when I first graduated college. Do you feel that there are a lot of people like you on the advising space? I have a personal answer. I would say no, but I'm curious to get your perspective.
I'm pleasantly surprised. And I think it is a little bit of confirmation bias where when I take a very clear stance on the industry, other people who are taking a similar stance will say, hey, I like this guy. Let me connect with him on LinkedIn. Let me give him a call. Let's set up a meeting. Let's have a conversation. And so I have been lucky enough to meet a lot of incredible financial planners and a lot of incredible wealth advisors too, particularly in that fire space or that fat fire space, because there are people who are my age who have exited businesses for $6-7 million. And those people maybe they do need a full service wealth management firm because they do need the dedicated investment team and they need the estate planning attorney and the CPA and that full holistic service. And the people who really specialize in working with those younger, ultra wealthy people, that's been an incredible community that I'm lucky enough to be a part of.
That's impressive. And I think this is a good call, podcast, video for people that are not just interested in advising, but the people that are actually the CFPs and the CFAs out there to pay attention and say, this, you're doing something different and it's working very well. And I think some people are maybe hesitant to get into something like this where you dove right in, one, probably listening to clients and seeing some kind of feedback, and you just started to post and it worked really well. But I think, and I could be wrong here, but I feel the industry has been shifting for some time, and it just kind of takes people at the spearhead like yourself to actually start doing it and showing that it works. While it's risky, I think your ability and your business so far have probably proven that it's worth it.
Oh, absolutely. And my colleague, Nick Meyer, as well, who's also very, very successful on social media, we have very much been on the forefront of CFPs on social media. I think he is the most followed CFP on social media, and I'm the third most followed CFP on social media. And so together we've been looking at our industry and saying, why are people not doing this? What are the problems? And really it boils down to compliance and apathy.
Yeah.
Because with compliance, if you are with a broker dealer, if you are with a large RIA, the answer to you posting on social media is just no. They're not going to let you. They're not going to allow that. And so even for the advisors who are champing at the bit and they're saying like, I want to do this, I see the value of this, I want to make it happen, there are these very restraining compliance rules that are still in place and are frankly outdated. I've been in and out of the SEC and the FINRA compliance rules because I understand that it's a huge risk to my business if I do something wrong there. Right. And the only thing I've discovered, the only thing I've heard from conversations with state regulators is that they're like, yeah, go do it. Just don't lie. Don't mislead people. Don't make false statements. Be a fiduciary. Don't bend things. Don't lie by omission. Like, do all of these things that we as fiduciaries naturally do. Just do that on social media. And that seems very doable to me.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because I feel YouTube and social media have also gone the route of like the Grand Steffens and Andre Jick, the people who aren't really financial advisors and kind of explain and bounce around the rules, versus you who are actually advising people all day long, and yet you're still getting into social and providing real feedback and advice from a much different point of view. So I feel that's also kind of blended too. People, I think, almost scare anybody else trying to share any kind of financial advice because of the disclaimers and following all the rules. So it's interesting to hear you say that versus seeing all the disclaimers on YouTube and podcasts and all the time.
Right. Well, it's counterintuitive because you would think that for me as a financial advisor, I would be subject to more rules or more risk, but I'm actually not, because I took the first most important step, which is that I am registered with all of the governing bodies. They know me. They have my fingerprints. They can hold me to a standard. For the people who are not registered, for the people that you mentioned who are giving financial advice blatantly on social media, but have no such claim to being a registered financial advisor or anything like that, those are the ones who are at risk. Those are the people who are really in danger of running afoul of the SEC, not financial advisors.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. So it's, again, a good note for the advisors listening and paying attention and worried about putting some useful information out there that will also help grow your business. So thank you for that one. You mentioned FIRE, and I'm curious to know what FIRE camp you sit in. Do you sit in the retire early or the recreational employment side of FIRE? I know you mentioned fat FIRE, so there's a couple of different ways, but I just break it into those two.
Yeah, I am definitely in the recreational employment FIRE camp. I love to work. I love building businesses. I will always do that. And what I will do over the course of my life is I will work in my lifestyle and I will work around my lifestyle, because right now while I'm young and while I'm pushing really hard to grow wealth and really put my time and sweat equity in, my lifestyle takes a back seat. And as I age and as I consider starting a family or just get a little bit tired of working, I will shift those priorities and I will begin to delegate more and put more on the people who are still really fired up and who are excited about providing an amazing service. And then I will have more time to do the things that I love, but I simply cannot imagine not working. I just am constantly running.
Yeah.
I'm constantly thinking. I'm up at 6 a.m, just like dreaming and wondering. And if that went away, I don't know that I would enjoy life as much as I do right now.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point. And I feel I'm in the same camp as you are with recreational employment, getting to a certain point where you get to choose how to spend your time, but you're not going to retire. I would feel that a lot of the people that you're targeting and starting to work with, and that's so we're going to dive into this H.E.N.R.Y, which I'd love to get your perspective on what a H.E.N.R.Y is and how that falls into things. But I feel a H.E.N.R.Y or your target clientele would be, I would say, more on the recreational employment camp, just with the way that life has kind of shifted over the last couple of years.
I think so. And I see a little bit of a split. So a H.E.N.R.Y is a high earner, not rich yet. And they are the people who are really starting to create wealth. And so when I sit down and I do a financial plan with a H.E.N.R.Y, because that's the exact target audience that I work with and I do my absolute best work for, I give them two options and I show them two different ways that someone might retire. One is the asset-based retirement. That's more your traditional FIRE approach, which is saving up enough money that you never need to work again and showing them what that would look like. And the other option that I always present to them is the income coverage model, where rather than just working and saving and eating beans and rice, instead you work on finding other ways to make income, whether that be real estate, investing in businesses, entrepreneurship through acquisition, you name it. There are so many interesting ways to make money online and in the world nowadays that do not involve anywhere near as much time commitment as a 9 to 5. And the point at which those other income streams replace the income from your 9 to 5, you are technically retired. I always tell people that I quit my job in August of this year. And so I retired because every single day I just wake up super excited to do what I do. And I now have control to do that whenever I want to. So I hit that income coverage. Am I still working? Absolutely. But I will find that it's a pretty even split. Some people want that traditional retirement as early as humanly possible, and other people think they'll work forever. And it's really interesting to see those two sort of interplay with each other, because I would say most of them are actually in the more traditional retirement, but it's a pretty even split.
Okay. And those people in the traditional, or either camp, really, which is so interesting about H.E.N.R.Y is they earn a bunch of money, but they might not actually be educated on anything either. So if you had to actually have a conversation with somebody that's particularly overwhelmed by everything when it comes to retirement, budgeting, investing, there's a lot of stuff to talk through. If somebody's overwhelmed by that in that H.E.N.R.Y class, what would you do? What would you tell them? Where would you tell them to start?
For me, the thing that I always recommend is just writing it down, because we as humans tend to blow things up in our brains and make it seem so insurmountable, so challenging. And so really that's so possible to do on your own, just writing down what your goals are, what are the things that are stressing you out. And that's also the role a financial plan plays, because that's just your entire finances on paper to say, this is what's going on. These are the rules that you should follow to get to that point that you would like to achieve. And so I always recommend writing it down and then doing a little bit of an audit, going through your budget, going through your income, getting a feel for, when you're not actively controlling your money, where is it going? What's happening to it? Because once you understand your now and you understand where you would like to go and sort of what those moving pieces are, you start to realize that there are a lot of levers that you can pull to improve your financial future without really sacrificing your lifestyle. And those become apparent if you do it yourself. You don't necessarily need a financial planner to make that happen.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well, Nate. And I think this, just listening to you and kind of talking through everything, I think this next question is going to be a really fun one, and that's your hot take on personal finance. I think you've already shared a couple of really solid points that I think are different from other people I've talked with, other advisors I've been with and talked with before. So I'm really excited. What's your one hot take on personal finance that you would, I think, share with people, whether that's social media or for the first time here?
My hot take for personal finance will have pretty much my entire industry cringing in their shoes, because I believe that every single person is capable of being financially independent without help. You can absolutely do it yourself. It is not hard. Building a portfolio is not hard. Saving money is not hard. It's not fun often. It takes a lot of mental load. And what people will find is that they have a huge amount of mental load already, particularly if they have a family and a demanding job. And so finding that additional bandwidth to go and do these things, that is the challenge, not the actual things. And so someone should go to a financial advisor or should go to a financial planner the same way they would go to a cleaning service, the same way they would go to a valet service. Can you park your own car? Of course. It is not that hard to park your own car, but you're going to have to drive around the block 5 times to find that spot, and then you're going to have to walk. And so for some people, particularly people who are making a lot of money and have created a lot of value associated with their time, it might be so worth their while to pull up in front of the hotel or the venue, pay that $20 for valet, and walk in and go and do the thing that they were there to do. That's what a financial advisor should be. They are not a doctor. They are not someone who's going to go in and do like open heart surgery that you could just never possibly do. They're someone who's making your life easier.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think quite the hot take, even though I feel some people maybe our age are starting to get more to that point, but they still don't have the answer. They don't see a lot of people that are offering what you're offering, and I think are on page with what you're talking through. I could also feel that what you're doing is probably upsetting a much larger, very rich industry, and your methodology really, I don't want to say takes money out of other people's pockets, but really it's shifting the way that they should be doing business for the betterment of that actual end retail investor. So it's interesting to hear that, and I hope people listen to this message and they're like, wow, I probably should change the way that I do a couple of my things.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I also think that like I'm lucky enough to be a speaker for the RIA Institute and those sorts of things. Like I am very well entrenched in the more traditional financial advising and wealth management industry, and they love it because frankly, they don't want my clients. They would so much rather work with someone who has $50 million that they have to meet with once a year, and they can collect their massive paycheck and they can serve that one person better than anyone else in the world. And they don't have to worry about the people who currently have $35,000 to invest, but maybe that person is making $300,000. Maybe that person is going to receive an inheritance from their parents or their grandparents to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. Well, that's where the risk is that right now they love it. I'm like the mascot. They're like, oh, look at this young guy. He's a go-getter. Like we're so proud of him, that sort of thing. And when I start taking market share because their clients start giving money to kids who no longer want to work with them,
Yeah,
that's where there might be a little more blood in the water.
got it. Yeah, that's good. So to close things out, what is the best way for people watching, listening today to find you?
I think the easiest way is to find me on TikTok. My tag is just Nate Hoskin. that's going to be where you'll find more information than you could possibly devour in one sitting. And hopefully someone will learn something from that TikTok. And then for anyone who wants to learn a little bit more about me, I'm absolutely around on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way to DM me and actually get in touch with me. And then my website, Hoskin Capital, is the easiest way to learn about what I'm working on.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. Everybody else, thank you for listening today. If you got any questions, comments, especially for Nate, go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section below. And then, as Nate just mentioned, you got plenty of places to reach out directly to him. Nate, thanks again for jumping on, and I hope you have a really good rest of your Friday.
Thanks, Josh. Same to you.
Thanks, Nate.